guys, what's up? Welcome to the 5th episode of the Rumination Project. And the Rumination Project is a channel where we will discuss some complex issues of everyday life, such as mental health, trauma, nature, spiritualism, religion, psychedelic science, health, and many other issues. And today we are going to talk about some mental health issues in our world, and we're going to have some friends here on the show. And this is my first time going live, and the first time having people on this actual podcast. So basically we have there's 4 men, and we're all going to discuss, our own mental health. And I ask anybody who's in the comments to be respectful of people, what they share, and our insecurities and the trauma that we're all going to talk about here. So just to put that out there, and we're going to start putting them here on the screen, and all 4 of us. And this is Sir, people who don't know, this is Steve-O and Waylon, and these are some, and Phil will be back here shortly. He's part of our podcast too, and these are some friends that I've met who actually want to, openly talk about mental health in America and what's going on. So, guys, what's going on?
What's up? Hey, I'm just sharing this out, getting this out there.
Yeah, I'll give it a moment here. Yeah. But basically, I wanted this podcast to be more about, we're all more into the natural, part of healing now, and we should openly talk about how much Western medicine has really failed. Not only me personally, but all of us, and we know people who it's failed as well, and it's not working very well. And America, is in a big crisis mode. And I mean, even veterans. We have 22 veterans committing suicide a day, and then we have all these issues in our schools and with children and the things that social media causes. So I think it's really important that we all openly talk about that.
I agree with you there, Dan. I think that especially with 22 a day committing suicide, we need to realize that, these veterans, when they come back, they should not be forgotten about, and that we should definitely look out for them and check on their mental health, because a lot of the times these guys are alone. A lot of the times they're divorced and they're down on their luck, injured, things like that, and could use us,
Yeah, there's no reason to keep it, to yourself. There's no reason to bottle it up. There's, what do you think? Maybe someone's going to make fun of you or something. Like, people find reasons anyway. Either way.
Yeah. And I'll show I'll go through some of this data here, and this stuff that is pretty shocking right now. And these are 2020, which usually they do mental health stats every few years. So the newest ones haven't exactly come out yet, but you can see that there's that 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 20 experience serious mental illness each year. And the biggest stat there that's really just troubling is suicide is now the second leading cause of death between people aged 10 to 14. And that's crazy to think that we live in a society where that that number is that number right now.
No, absolutely, dude. I've witnessed suicide firsthand on a couple occasions, and attempted suicide once myself.
I'm sorry.
It's gotten worse. When I was in high school, it seemed like some kids had trouble, but not like today, where it's tripled, and it's gotten a lot worse with social media and children trying to find their confidence in life and then being bullied online, and it really affects their well-being.
Well, because they're growing up as it's developing, and they don't know anything else. Like, for us, we have a reference point, and even for adults, we have a hard time dealing with the online. And people like to pretend, well, it's just fake, it's online. Well, I don't like to think of it that way. It's real people. It's just that you have this sort of anonymity that we used to say before the internet. It was more like a telephone tough guy. Ever heard that term?
Mhm.
where
Oh, yeah, I've heard of
over the phone it's real easy to talk smack and to be rude and crude and all those sort of things, similar to the online, and that's I'm sure before that the newspapers were ways to do. I mean, I just think that we look at new things and we think it's so detrimental to us, but we just have to wrap our minds around it. And to your point, Dan, we have to help kids navigate those things too. And bullying is going to be there, and actually a lot of kids don't think of it that way anymore anyway. The bullies could be just the person that has the most time on their hands on the internet, so it's weird. It's not the same thing that we think of as a bully, in our heads. It's like it could be anyone. I'm just sharing into a couple groups here.
When it comes to the bullying, I was kind of bullied when I was growing up, but I also had my best friend. He was a monster over me, so I learned how to fight and fight well with him. He was big enough to where he could have just picked me right up and just threw me. And fighting with him growing up, wrestling and things, prepared me later on for that bully moment, to where I finally stood up for myself and said no more.
Mm-hmm. And that's good that you were able to overcome that situation.
Well, I mean, I was even bullied by my old man, so that was kind of the it was hard being bullied. And then finally, when I said enough's enough, I realized that you only give your abuser enough power, or you only give your abuser the power that you let them.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not.
To go through this list more, the fact that mental health plays a huge role in our mental health, but our physical health. People with depression have a 40% higher risk of developing cardiovascular and other diseases. And I've actually gone through that as well. With my health, I've had mental health issues my whole life, and I have gut bacteria issues now and ulcers, and that's a mixture of Western pharmacology mixed with just bad genetics over time.
Well, you're right. I mean, nutrition plays so much of a part. People spend so much time thinking and physically worrying themselves and giving themselves anxiety about their problems that might have to do with actually just changing a little bit of their diet. And
absolutely,
and it's so crazy, because we attribute so much to our mental health, and then we talk about ways to fix it, but we don't typically talk about diet all that often. At least less so. I think those of us that are here will probably bring it up more often. But you know what I mean? Like, a lot of times, you can see therapy, you can get some medication. We talk about cannabis as a medication for mental health, but we don't really talk about the diet aspect of it as often.
Yeah.
So Mally Queen.
This stuff adds up to a lot of money in the healthcare system, because we don't have a very good healthcare system for mental health. And it says that 1 out of every 8 emergency department visits are mental health and substance use disorders, And if we had that's a lot, and they should have more of a permanent place that is filtered, that helps these people in a specific location that is funded by our taxes. And the government just keeps other countries having all these systems, but our government just fails every time to pass something that works.
Well, that works part is the can be up in the air, especially when countries that maybe they have a program for it. That doesn't mean that it's works. Maybe
but most of the countries that do, they basically, if you have an issue, they have these facilities that you go to and you seek help, and you don't have to pay anything.
Like assisted suicide up north in Canada.
Yeah, and the system pays for it. Obviously, not everybody uses it, but it helps keeps society rolling better when these people who have mental health issues are taken care of, with even if at the taxpayer's expense.
Yeah, I just don't agree with this assisted suicide, honestly,
Oh
especially
yeah,
at
sure.
taxpayers'
Yeah, I didn't say that.
expense. Well, but that's one way that some countries deal with the problem. Oh well, here you go. You funnel them towards this direction, then we sort of let them do this if they want. And I agree that we need something like almost like
mean,
like an ER, like a
Yeah.
mental health ER
Like,
almost.
I called once. I called this place in our town and I said that I was suicidal and I wanted to see a therapist, and they said that they could get me in 90 days. And
Wow.
I told them, I, what's 90 days going to do me when I'm suicidal? And they said, well, if you're suicidal, go to the ER. But the ER doesn't have the kind of care that these places can have with therapists and stuff
Drug you
all
up.
the time.
Take drugs is basically what
Yeah.
what
Right.
you're saying.
I didn't even go see a doctor. I thought that was so ridiculous that I gave up, and I didn't even go see one. I just dealt with it myself.
Mhm.
I almost thought about doing that when we had a mental health episode on people in the boxes, and I almost thought about calling while live on the air and calling a crisis hotline. But I thought, I could get in trouble for that, or also maybe I'm taking up space from someone who may have actually needed to call it or something like that. So ultimately I didn't, but I really thought it'd be interesting to see, show everyone live, like what happens, like how difficult, like if they said 90 days or whatever.
Yeah, and in this area we're short therapists, and it's nationwide, and it's because we have the resources in every area, but they're kind of like scattered among different companies instead of being put into one giant resource that can be more efficient and work better in the area towards mental health. And
It's like a patchwork of possible hotlines and things that
yeah,
you could get lost in and then get scammed and just too many.
and the VA, especially service members, know that when they get
Mhm.
when their benefits get rejected or disability gets rejected to seek mental health services, and it's so much red tape for a veteran to go through when he served our country.
Well, and they definitely just wanted to medicate me. I declined it with like the Xanax and stuff like that because it wasn't helping my mental health. It was just masking it. Or
You can see right here, it says 15% of U.S. veterans experienced a mental illness in 2019, and that is a total of almost 32 million people. That's a lot of people, because we're talking all the veterans through the whole military. So that's a huge portion of our population that it affects, and yet we treat the veterans kind of the worst.
Yeah, I don't understand it. The PTSD that is so, I'm sensitive to people with PTSD, especially veterans, because I feel like that they were willing to give the ultimate price. And, I'm just very sensitive to that. I'm really glad that we're bringing attention to that tonight.
And here's just some more stuff about suicide. I had a friend who I knew who committed suicide in December, and he was just 39, and it's shocking. We all know somebody now who committed suicide. Multiple people, and that's kind of sad that we live in a society now where that happens a lot. But it says 79% of people who die are suicide or male. That's obviously not some kind of erratic step. That's men are committing suicide more than women, and I don't know if it's because men don't talk about it enough, but it's just only 20% of suicides are women and 80% are men.
The weight of the world are on men's shoulders, guy.
In a way. And I actually don't know any females that have. I know one who committed suicide, but I just know so many men who have.
Me too.
But it's not that it's not important to women too. Mental health is as important, but
Oh, mental health across the board.
we have to follow the facts of what our society is and try to streamline, services based on all these facts. So I guess we'll start talking, a little bit, gone through that and talking about, our own struggles. And
it's a physiological difference though that men can't access or can't deal with our feelings as much, right?
True.
And then that's where That's where
But,
we go
yeah.
to anger and we go to violence, and then that's what happens. So
And it's,
just like
We're
not
not
being able
taught
to.
how to deal with it from a young age.
Well, yes, but it's also physiological. It's also like our brains just are not as in tune with emotions as women, and that's why we don't. That's why I said this earlier, and I think it's okay to talk about it again. But like men want to be so stiff and rigid, and like we nothing can bother us, right? Kind of like a tree. That's in a storm or a tornado, and that tree is too stiff. But a small plant that gets whipped in the wind, it's going to live, as to where that tree might actually snap eventually and break. And that's how a lot of men are. We try to be so rigid for so long that when we do hit that breaking point and we snap. Like, we actually, that's when we turn to anger, when we're actually just sad or having other issues.
and I see some comments. We're not trying to say women don't have mental health, issues are important.
Oh,
It's just
absolutely not.
The fact
No.
is just 80% of men of suicides are men, and I was just sharing that fact.
That
And,
statistic. I
yeah.
mean, my sisters, my mother, my wife, my daughter, they all have their issues.
Right.
And I agree with it.
Yeah. I've had mental issues my whole life, and I've been part of the system, and that it didn't work for me. I've been medicated since I was 13, and sometimes I wish they would have taken a different road for me, and it wouldn't
Me
have been.
too.
But back then they didn't know much as we do now about the food we eat, and more research on actually what these medications that Western medicine actually offers are doing. And I mean, I know all the stats myself. I know that almost only 25% of people who take medications actually, get relief from them. And sometimes you have to try many different forms and before you even find something that works.
Sometimes they have the opposite effect.
True. And I spent years going through mental health, and every 6 months the medication I would stop working effectively, and I have to, find something else. And it's just the way the pharmacology works. It stops being very efficient in working with your brain over time, and you have to try a different medication. So I can't even count. I guarantee you I've taken over a dozen different prescriptions since I was 13. And I think that's why I have bad bacteria now, and that I have to kind of try to regulate it more than a normal person. Because those medications tear your gut up.
Oh yeah, they can cause a lot of issues. Same thing with like inhalers.
Yeah. Especially if you
why
take
I
them for
struggle.
decades. And I wish that they would have taken a different proactive approach with me instead of medicating me.
Instead of me going on heavy doses of opiates, they told me about going on gabapentin. And although it does help me extremely well, I know that it's robbed me a lot of my cognitive abilities as far as, speaking quickly, things coming to mind. Basically, things coming from my brain to my mouth quick enough.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wish
like-
I wasn't on that.
Yeah, mine are more insecurities that I have, the mental health. I mean, I had a really good childhood. I just had a very lonely childhood. I didn't connect with many people, and that led to a lot of behavior issues that they tried to medicate me with, when really it was just having a connection with my mother. It was really all it came down to.
Really?
And not having that connection led, to a whole bunch of issues that Western medicine doesn't really understand about, but I mean, you see it through any other animal. If an animal doesn't, attach well to its mother, it has just social issues down the road. And I really felt like I had that, but it wasn't really my own mother's fault. It was just a combination of the environment and bad situations that happen in life. And that's the way life goes sometimes.
That's why things like this are nice, because it gives people perspective from different angles. Because you sometimes think, well, what would have been like this? What would have been like that? Well, you hear, like for instance, like having a parent in the household. You hear stories that are good and bad from both directions.
Uh,
So just having that perspective can help you think, well, maybe it's not just something wrong with me or whatever. Like you came to the conclusion that your connection with your mother was a lot of it. But some people don't come to those conclusions, and they
Right.
constantly try to think that there's something that they did wrong or that they're just broken or
almost
whatever.
almost everything that happens in our adulthood is 99.9% connected to our childhood.
Okay,
There's-
Freud.
It's hard to, it's hard to remember that and remember that when you're an adult because your mind changes and you get older and you kind of lose touch with your childhood. And
Silos.
but that's how they say as to keep your sanity and happiness, you have to keep a hold of your childhood. You have to understand the child that's still, in all of us.
He's okay, Silos. We try not to ask him that every 5 minutes. Just because Steve looks like Eeyore half the
He's
time
looking down.
doesn't mean.
Hey, that's a good.
Lord, damn, son.
You know, Winnie the
Okay.
Pooh was about mental health.
Got him. Yeah, and
actually,
it
I
was
share a
also
lot of
about
his quotes. He was
Yeah.
some of his quotes are really powerful, especially when somebody dies in your life.
It's so hard to read, man. And I've been reading it to my son, the original. It's both written in parts where it's coming from a boy's perspective as far as the grammar and the language, but then other parts it's just written where it's very vocabulary heavy, where you're just all over it, and it's not a children's like vocabulary book. It's tough.
Yeah,
It's a book
it was
you
actually
read to children, not a book
he
that
got a lot of
children-
lessons in that show that were
The show too, yeah.
even taught as an adult and teach adults the lessons of that show.
And it's done in such a way that you don't know that you're learning it. Like it's not so in your face. You should do it like this because you know that's bad for you. And this, it's more like the bear is kind of being you get to be the bear more or less.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of people don't understand that trauma can actually be caused by loneliness too. Everybody thinks that like mental health is like, oh, he got abused as a kid or, the normal circumstances of domestic violence. But there are other circumstances that can affect people's mental health deeply that we don't really think about a lot. And even loneliness, the lonely child can have great effects down the road to his mental health.
Hi, Valerie. Did you call me Eeyore just a minute ago? That was pretty good.
Well, I mean, I guess we were talking about Winnie the Pooh.
And then I was
Eeyore.
sitting there all,
You are the oldest character in the show too.
I don't,
He was
I
like
don't know what you mean
he
by
was-
oldest.
I don't know. He had like the most wisdom. It seemed like he was
No, it was Owl had the like.
Owl had most wisdom. He was
yeah.
the oldest.
In the book.
Eeyore was
In the
like
book,
an
Owl.
character.
In the book, Owl uses big words but isn't smart. He just tries to sound smart. But it's different in the show. It's different.
Man, I have not read those books, like that book, in forever, dude.
I've never read.
Like
it.
I've seen the show and the movie, a couple years ago, but that book, wow. Been a
Well,
long
speaking of mental health, with books, like if you get time, I don't get time much anymore, but reading an actual book with paper, there's something different about that with your mental reactions to it. Not just like informational books, but like something to just sort of take your mind away and get in it, and it sort of works on your mind's eye a little bit because you're picturing it as you're reading it. And there's something about that changes your perspective on things compared to digital or a movie.
Yeah,
I love reading. I really do.
I prefer to listen to the video or the audio books. I feel my brain likes to multitask, so it kind of feels like you can listen to that and do something else at the same time.
Yeah, it's hard to multitask when you're reading a book for sure.
When I get into like serious study mode, I train myself to where if I put the book and then the audio together and then start writing things, taking notes, man, that's where my brain goes to study.
All right. There are a lot of books nowadays for mental health too. I realized that when I was 2 years ago, when I was going into more natural part of treatment. And finding that there are a lot of good books out there, a lot of good authors, and a lot of them are actually free podcasts or affordable stuff, to get wisdom of how to treat yourself without, pharmaceuticals.
My man here, he's very wise beyond his years.
And all of us here, we all know that I'm bipolar, and I actually started an natural treatment with cannabis. And when Illinois became legal in 2020 is when I actually stopped using my prescriptions, because I then had access to cannabis that could specifically treat bipolar, and that really helped start my journey of treating myself without prescriptions. Of course, you have to add other things. Cannabis isn't going to treat, bipolar, but it's definitely a good start. And I know you guys all use cannabis for different reasons too, but it does help your mental health.
I use it as a performance enhancing drug.
Nobody loves me.
I honestly think it's important to use on a podcast because it kind of makes you open and vulnerable, especially on a mental health podcast. Kind of
Right.
makes you more social and open up.
Okay. Are you sure you invited me?
Nobody loves me.
You got a lot of viewers in here. 12
Silos
viewers?
came in and asked you if you were okay,
Yeah,
Steve.
quite a few.
And you weren't watching because you were looking down.
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start wearing sunglasses like you because I don't
Just do
wear.
this.
Didn't I tell you to get those Jurassic Park sunglasses? I told one of you guys.
These lights that I got for this green screen behind me are bright, dude, and I can't stand it without my sunglasses.
That's what I'm saying. I got 4 lights on me right now. Like you can see how bright I am by doing this. All right. Look how bright. My
Look
hand
right
is
there,
white.
buddy.
My hand is
High five.
white.
Yeah.
Well, yes, my hand's white. Orpheus, before you say nothing. Fantastic. Yeah, you got 10 people on the Facebook side, and you got 11 people. You're on YouTube and elsewhere. Where else are you at?
So Phil, you said you've had a different aspect of mental health. You've been through the prison system, and you've kind of
Yeah,
seen
DC,
that part of
DOC.
it. What like where most of the people who have mental illnesses are in prison. And I think of that story recently that happened on the airplane where did you see that guy? He tried to open the emergency hatch and then he attacked one of the pilots with a broken spoon. And you could totally tell that he was having a mental breakdown, but he got charged with a federal crime. He's going to get thrown into a prison, and the key thrown away, and they're going to kind of not treat whatever episode he was having.
They
there,
don't. I want to stop you right there, Dan, because the states and the federal system don't have any more mental hospitals. They turned all of that responsibility over to the DOC systems. Because when I was locked up in Gus Harrison Correctional Facility, I can pull up a background here in a minute of that facility. It there was 3 block was all psychiatric patients, like really like One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest type scenario. So they don't have any more help, like health systems where mental hospitals. They do have privately run group homes and things of that nature, but if someone with a really mental health issue commits a crime, they go straight to prison.
Yeah,
And they'll just deal with them there.
Yeah, that's the bad thing about Western medicine mixed with the judicial system. It kind of like these people have mental breakdowns and then they do crimes, but we don't approach it like that. They're like, we just approach it that these people are criminals when they're not. They're just mentally ill people who need help. And I think everybody should, deserve a chance. I think if we had a system where people could go through mental health treatment for the same amount of years, they could come out way better than they would in a prison.
Oh, 100%, dude. Let me.
Well, I mean, listen though, that sounds like the grass is greener kind of thing. We need something better than what we've done in the past, because when we did have mental institutions,
Yeah, not
they
like
could
that
just
serious.
lock you away. You come in there. You might have a problem that's like a couple of days worth of counseling, but then they lock you. End up getting locked away
Man,
because every time you say I'm not crazy, then they say they attack another few weeks on or whatever it is. Like there's horror stories, and that's what the slippery slope is, because when somebody's committing a crime, almost assuredly there's some sort of a reason for that that's outside of the norm, whether that's financial and you're having a breakdown because you just can't pay the bills and you're gonna go and do something. That could be considered a mental health thing too, and so you can pretty much construe every crime in the book as a mental health problem. So then
yeah,
what do you
I mean,
do? Then
people
what do you
should
do?
pay the consequences of their crimes, but I think we should offer things to keep them from being repeat offenders. Because like I know
Right.
men who just spend their whole life going in and out of prison, and
Yep.
they don't ever come. They don't know how to adjust to society because we never gave them those tools or the options of those tools. And
That's the question: is if do we have tools that would work, and we haven't tried yet, which we haven't. I'm open to trying for sure. I like to reserve the fact that we for sure have a way to rehabilitate everybody until we give it a shot, because some of those stats are not because of the system, but because someone is just might be predisposed to going back to doing
be criminal.
similar
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to, be a better person, they have to put the work in too. So I think
right.
that should be put into the system. That hey, you work so hard for your mental health, you get good instead of consequences, you get positive things.
That this right here is that's Adrian.
Do what?
That was this is Gus Harrison.
Oh, and the picture in the back, yeah.
Yeah, that. Now that facility right there.
To figure out how to.
Yep. Okay. Trying to figure out where it was. Yep, this one was the mental housing unit there.
It's a big place.
That one was in Adrian. That's Adrian, Michigan. Gus Harrison Correctional Facility. That's where I did most of my time.
Gotcha. I've
But,
just done.
Suicide, my third day when I was locked up, I ended up, 2 weeks, 3 days in. I was in Jackson on north side, north 3 block on the base. And I was welcomed, rightfully so, to prison at 19. I was just standing there like this with my arms outside the bars. You could hear chatter. And I was just looking out at the bars, the wall, going, man, how the hell did I find myself here? Like,
Yeah.
damn, I screwed up. And next thing I know, with quiet, this dude landed about 4 feet in front of my cell, directly in front of my cell. Head first into the concrete, 50 feet.
Huh.
And I was like, man, I couldn't, it was like a car wreck. You just can't stop from looking. And I was just staring. A short time later, I hear the footsteps running down the corridor there, and officer stopped in front of the cell and looked at me and said, what happened? I kind of looked at him. I said, I'm fucking fine now, dude. I'm in here. I was going to ask you the same thing. And so he ran, officer, lieutenant come over and started talking to me. They found a suicide note in a dude's cell.
Man,
He jumped 50 feet.
he probably
That
wasn't
was
even
my-
in there.
That was like
That's
3
a-
days in.
What was he in there for?
I don't know what he was in there for, but I know why he jumped. It was in his note. He tested positive for HIV,
Oh man.
and he figured in his head he had no other way.
Or he didn't want to. He didn't want to make the journey of trying to live like that, or the to come back from that in some way.
It's even he even said it in his note. They let me read it because it was such a they seemed like, damn, dude, this guy. They let me know what the note said.
Don't in prisons they openly have to let people know that they're HIV positive too, so you can
Because
because he can get.
yes and no. Yes
So
and
he-
no.
If inmates know, obviously they could, there could be repercussions if somebody.
Well, as soon as that happened, there was blood everywhere, dude. This part of his head was here. It was,
yeah.
there was a lot of blood. So, but there was a curtain on my cell, and the reason why they had curtains on the cells, especially on the base, is because of that very reason. Because people getting thrown over, so they don't want the
Right.
blood splatter coming back in.
Yeah.
It's just easier to clean up.
Me, man, that's crazy.
I don't think anybody else. I've just been to a county jail,
I'll be right back.
really crappy
Absolutely.
county jail.
It was
But-
pretty. I was 19 years old, and I got sentenced to 2.5 to 15 years, and I did 3.5 of it.
Yeah, I was in for just a couple weeks. You could see the amount of men that were in there was just a lot of anger issues.
Oh, there's
No.
anger everywhere.
Yeah.
There's anger everywhere. That is a
And,
place of absolute anger.
Maybe like 1 out of the 20 guys actually have their head on straight, and you can kind of talk to them. But there's a lot of men in there with anger issues.
It was dealing with that in my past. It's been pretty crazy having to come from
Yeah,
dealing with a society, like living in a walled area like that,
yeah,
for and then coming to a society. My first 2 years, 3 years out were absolutely terrifying, because I was quick to hurt. I was quick, like you weren't. I wasn't going to allow you to hurt me anymore, and
Yeah.
that's where it all started for me. Like all the way up through my childhood, I was always bullied, and then when I put myself into prison, it was I'm not going to be picked on no more.
yeah,
So, you stand up for yourself, and that anger that I had, that I felt through all my life, always being put down. And when I finally put my hands to work, as I called it, that it was almost satisfying, because that anger that I had built up all them years back, I was able to let it go in an environment that bred anger and violence. So I spent some time in the hole. I'll say that.
yeah.
I'm not proud of that, but it was my journey, part of my journey.
Yeah.
I couldn't think about laying my hands on anybody now, to be honest with you.
Eva, what about you?
Well, I've been through the similar things. I was when I was young, I was locked up, and I don't know. I don't like to talk about it, but it's, I understand what he's going through.
Yeah, sure.
For the longest time, I couldn't, I couldn't sit in a restaurant without my back being to a wall, because I didn't want anyone walking behind me, and
Yep.
things of that sort. Always having to have my back to the wall, no matter where I was.
I know that feeling, Steve-O.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
Man, it took a long time to get over that. I still get like that. It's just a habit for me just to roll up. I don't even think about it. I just roll up to the wall at a restaurant or whatever, and
Yeah.
try to be like between my old lady and the door if I can help it. Just stuff like that. It's just like, instinct. But what am I going to do now by the time I get my rickety ass up, And that's hard to deal with too, because, I'm at a point in my life now to where, I'd be better off letting my old lady run loose and get at him because she fucked somebody up. You can believe that.
Yeah.
I tell people I got about 30 seconds of fighting left in my life, and that's in case I get mugged or somebody cuts me in line in Burger King.
Yeah.
One of the two. One of the two.
Right.
Take that serious. Cutting line
Right.
stuff.
I got just that little bit of fight left in me, man, that, if I ever had to put it all on the line, it would be for a good reason, trust me.
Yeah, that's it. This is the show
Yeah.
right here. This is all
Yeah.
I got.
This is it,
Give me the
man.
best 35 seconds.
I hope that I get to stand up and go "Rah!" right before I collapse. Or pull a Nick Diaz, man, and get somebody in a choke and just be all ooh, and then I'll pass out, and then it'll be over.
Yeah.
You know, I look at my PTSD and people, and here's the biggest thing I've noticed with PTSD and telling people you do have it. The first thing they do is like, oh, what branch did you serve in? And I'm like, Hard Knocks, like Con College. I don't know, but most of my PTSD was from my childhood.
Sorry to
The
hear
wild thing is we all have PTSD. Every single one of us. We have
Oh, absolutely.
things that happen in our life that change our behaviors, and that put up a wall when we encounter it, and it protects us. But sometimes it protects us in a bad way.
Good point.
It's the same with trauma. People don't think they have trauma, but if somebody ever treated you wrongly and your brain remembered that and kind of reacted differently, that's it's trauma. But that's what our brain is full of,
Mm-hmm.
and that trauma kind of molds us into who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see it all as trauma because
Yeah, I know.
memories
You know
too
what I mean.
will mold on top of the trauma, because I know that some of the trauma that I've experienced, there was my mind completely knocked it out. Like I couldn't remember it until I was able to take some medication to deal with that trauma correctly, and my mind allowed me to go through that trauma correctly again. And I think
Right.
we all can understand what I'm talking about here and the medication I'm talking about. And that's where that good micro dosing, and then I feel that once in a while up it a little bit from a micro dose to reveal that what transpired in that and be able to work through it as a grown adult.
Yeah. You're talking more about the new aspects of treating mental illness with the microdosing, and what people don't know, but
Even I've heard that I don't know. I wanted to ask you, and I haven't been able to talk to you since I heard about it. But that sensation deprivation chamber. Have you heard of that or done that?
no, but I've wanted to do it. I have the people who I know said that give me access to it, and I told them, well, I may be on psychedelics, and they were they would help go through that experience if needed. But
Okay.
that would be interesting to do it on psychedelics. But they say don't do it unless you're experienced. Don't do it like your first or second time.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
you're experienced.
That might get intense.
Yeah, there was
No, I'm
actually
just curious.
a TV show where a guy did that. It was a TV show on HBO, but the guy took a psychedelic, went and did that sleep deprivation, and he went face to face with his ego, and they made it into some comical thing where he's like, "Well, I think I'm supposed to kill you now," and
I
where you kill your
didn't even
ego.
know that. That's funny.
Yeah, it was a comedy show that I watched.
You'll have to you have to send me something. I'd like to see that.
That sounds funny as shit.
It was that rapper. I can't remember his name. Who made a TV show. He's a
Lil
white
Dicky?
rapper. Yeah, Lil Dicky. He
Okay.
made it.
Oh,
He made a
Dicky. I know
TV
who
show,
you're
and
talking about.
it kind of like fabricates his life, but he kind of makes fun of his own. It makes fun of like male sexuality in a funny way. It's really weird the way he made it, but it's like he uses male insecurities to make into a funny kind of serious At the moment, it's very dark because at one moment, one of the guys has he's bipolar, and like the show, one episode turns completely dark really quickly, where he has a bipolar episode, and it really shows mental health too in America. I thought that was really interesting that he threw that into the show. But do you know what the name of that show is, Waylon?
Little Dicky.
Is that he named it Little Dicky?
Little Dicky.
But that was his. He's got like an alter ego that he has in the show
With two holes in his penis.
All right,
Yeah.
Prince Albert, huh?
Interesting
That's
too, because he actually uses his own rap in the show, so he like raps in the show.
Okay.
But I thought it was an interesting way to incorporate mental health and male insecurities in one TV show and make it funny.
You got to use humor.
Yeah.
Entertainment. All these things have to be used in order to swallow the medicine, which is difficult topics.
Yeah,
Sugar helps the medicine go down, right? That's what she said.
Now, in all honesty, though, without the cannabis use, if you were just doing the straight podcasting thing and going through the circuit and building your audience, and you get to the point where you say have like a Jordan Peterson on or something, then it could be dry as hell, but so interesting that you still have people watching for hours. You know, like because for some reason the cannabis. I don't know. I don't know of any. I mean, I guess on Joe Rogan, he does smoke once in a while, not much anymore, as much on camera. That was the only sort of saving grace. Yeah, that was the only sort of saving grace, though, for that sort of platform, to see someone using cannabis at that level to be able to talk about things like mental health and stuff, to then relate to people like us and anyone sort of in the culture, or anyone who doesn't think it's cool to talk about or whatever. That was sort of a gateway to be able to get it more popular, and that's cannabis, unfortunately, is very connected to culture. It's a huge connection to culture, and I think it's going to be tough for guys like us to work our way up there from here using
it's been
cannabis.
a medicine for thousands of years. I mean,
Right.
we all know that. It's
We're all
just the
sort of
last
propping
100
it up.
years of prohibition in this country.
and the CBD, CBG, that's why I tried to educate.
That's
Cannabinoids are kind of more potent than the THC alone.
But you know what I'm saying, though? We
Yeah.
are coming from the bottom up, trying to build something, each one of us separately, building our own shows, building our own businesses, and to be out there and open about cannabis is actually can be detrimental. But I think over the long period, though, we are sort of in that groove of other people, that wave of people popular and normalizing it. And and I think there will come a point where it's normalized enough that we won't see as much
It's
of
really it's a stigma, and most people don't know.
Yeah.
They don't see the difference until one of their family members actually gets better off of cannabis. And I've seen it happen to this 80-year-old man I was helping his wife, and the minute he saw cannabis making his wife a better person, back to her normal state, he was on board with cannabis, and now even uses it himself. And it's really about just fighting that stigma of people who are up against
Right.
that it's not good until they actually see it.
And all of us are doing
I like to tell people when approaching cannabis, because there's actually, I'm not going to mention any names, but I help more than a few cannabis patients that are legal grow their medicine that have never grown it before, or that have difficulties growing it, and I give them techniques, show them how. But I like to start them off on the road that when you look at cannabis, look at CBD as look at it as a cake. The CBD and CBDN, CBG, that's the base of the cake. That's all of it. And THC is just the sugary icing on top.
Yeah.
And that's what I like how to help these older generation people that went through that real prohibition of cannabis, that are looking at it as a viable medicine now into their 70s and 80s, that don't know nothing about it.
Yeah. And I've recently, since I started with cannabis, once it became legal, and I found these other substances like lion's mane, And then I found the CBG, and I found eventually the magic mushrooms that have nearly, cured almost all my mental illness. And
There's a
that's,
book that I've showed you, Dan, and I want to show everybody that I think if you can get it and start looking through it.
yeah, I've seen that book. There's so many out there now that there's so much information.
Mhm.
These book, I mean, they're all plants, man. That's what we were relying on for thousands of years.
Right.
Just until the last 125, 150 years when modern medicine, as we know it, came aboard.
Yeah, and when we started making these artificial dyes that are really influence children's minds too.
Yes.
Yeah, the diet and the fake dyes, and it's all
So
just
our adult mental health is definitely, like you said, a lot of times has caused something in our childhood. But that means in the reverse of that, then we should be looking at strengthening our children's mental health earlier, through
Yeah,
diet, through also us having conversations with them about, like said, social media, other kids, just the vastness of the world and the internet, and what you put out there, and what's happening when you put funny things out that maybe some other people don't like or whatever. So it's just it's going to take more work as parents, I think, as the world becomes more connected, but also
Right.
bigger and more connected at the same time.
right. And I think that a lot of this, we can help a lot of children if we talk more about it, or have like courses that just offer to children, just openly talk about it. How do you feel today, and just observing your own mental health. I never had any.
I mean,
Sorry about
that.
we as adults need to learn how to deal with our own issues first before we start trying to teach our little ones.
Yeah.
But the best way to start that is correctly on how to correctly deal with your emotions. That's
Yeah.
it. I mean, how do we deal with emotions even as adults? I mean, I today I've gotten my anger got carried away, and I yelled at my kids, and I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. But that's dealing with emotions. How do we better deal with that?
Right.
Well, that's
And
the problem.
we don't offer stuff like that, and with stuff is important to being a good adult, and doesn't.
But you can't though. Can you really offer something like that? Like, do you want some other adult telling your kids how to feel?
Well, I mean,
No.
it should but it should be all like science based. We need to approach it from what works the best.
Leave the science. That's tough. I know. I agree. I agree. But it can be co-opted, and that's where I think.
Yeah.
I think you're never going to have a more important role in a kid's life than the parents.
Right.
Now, with that being said, there are 100% success stories of kids that go through foster systems and other things. Like, yes, it can happen, and I 100% believe it's worth. Like, I don't think kids are worthless if they're in that system. I think we should definitely put more time and effort in that system as well. I always thought it'd be great to have eventually become successful enough that I could put some of my wealth into that, like adopting the oldest kids in the orphanage, like just giving them a better step off into life as an adult. Not necessarily wanting them to call me as a parent, but
Yeah.
a mentor type role. I think more people could do that, and it's like you don't have to be this weird, awkward. Okay, I'm your new parent. Like, you could just make it more like, hey, let me help you out. But then you get weird people that do stuff to kids, like not necessarily even pedos, but other weird people that want to groom kids into becoming their replacement in their job or whatever, and stuff like that. It's weird. It's very difficult. That's why I think it's really difficult to be able to have anyone say how to deal with feelings properly. How
Right.
do we? What's the?
Even religions can't really even approach it effectively.
They just
Even-
say to pray and to spend more time
Yeah.
worshiping. That actually does deal with it, because then you either take your mind off of it, or you waste so much time not
Yeah.
spending it being angry somewhere, I guess. I don't
And
know.
I was raised Catholic, and we had these special courses when we were younger called CCD classes, and on like a Tuesday night. And I mean, that would have been a perfect opportunity to teach young kids this, but all they did was teach us about the gospel, the same things they teach in church. But I think that each religion has opportunities to teach kids about that stuff if they choose to, but they just don't take advantage of it.
They
I
get
know
really
Phil,
lost in stories with kids because
I
they
know
think that's
Phil
the only
goes
way.
to. He's not here. He goes to a Christian church that I used to go to, and I'm not religious anymore. But this church they're very effective at dealing with mental health, I think. Um, Phil, you go to the Crossing, and I was telling them how well that place works,
Yeah.
helping men, talk about mental health or even children, or they're a lot more open.
Oh, I actually, I go to the Crossing, and I actually co-lead in a regeneration group, and it's a 12-step group, and some people look at me, well, you use cannabis. Well, I'm patient, trust me. You do not want to see me not having cannabis, because my level of fight or flight, my fuse is very short. Cannabis lengthens that fuse extremely.
Well, there's other people who use cannabis at that church who just, aren't as open as you are. So.
But I'm helping people through a 12-step group. I used to be an extreme alcoholic.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's what I am sober from. And I was a really bad alcoholic. So I got back on cannabis after years and years and years of not using it. And I slowly stopped using alcohol to where I haven't used alcohol in 4 years. I haven't touched a drop of it in 4 years, sober. And I have since then become a tremendously better husband, father, still getting better. I'm not perfect by any means. I get better every day. But yeah, I co-lead some men through that 12-step group and it's a fantastic group ministry to really help men and women focus on the struggles of substance abuse, not only alcohol or anything else, but it's even porn addiction. So there's so it does help.
Yeah. I'm not religious anymore. I'm more spiritual, but I believe that religion makes a person who they are. So it's very important to that person and important to me. And I think everybody find their own happiness in their religion. And hopefully the religion takes care of them better too, like your church does. Where it actually, you go to church, and sometimes they just go to church and that's it. You don't get anything else out of it. But
Steve,
it's good that these churches are offering mental health services.
Yeah.
Sure. I didn't know if you were Waylon, if you went to church or not, or.
I've been to a bunch of churches. Steven, would you mind muting, buddy? Hi, Kelly. We love you.
Hi. Taking out the garbage. It's Sunday night. Garbage.
All right. We love that. Well, we appreciate you, though, to do that.
Love it. Now,
do it.
I don't look as I ran away from God years ago. Before even really knowing him, but I wouldn't consider myself a religion. I don't follow a certain church's practices or a doctrine. I read the word and I interpret what the word's telling me. And
I don't read the Bible.
I've read the Quran. I've studied a lot of religion. I had 3.5 years of studying a lot of religion.
I have an idea for a docu-series where I take a cameraman and myself, and we would have to work it out weeks ahead of time, and ask churches of all different types, doesn't matter, and ask ahead of time and find out if it's okay for me to attend a service and get some footage at all, like even if they sort of tell me what footage to get. And then I talk about my experience, not a theological experience, but a physical experience of what it's like a day in the life of going to that church. And so a lot of people out there might be able to say, oh, I wonder if you ever went to this religion or this religion, and they just sort of want to know what it was like, to experience that service. And maybe one day I have too many shows, but It's always a thought of mine because I think it would be interesting to see the differences and the similarities. I've been to Baptist church, I've been to Catholic church, I've been to Protestant church. I know they all do their own thing, but that's all within the Christianity side of things, you know.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
I have my own. I have my own beliefs and my own connections, and I think spirituality is one way to make that. And then you have your own personal. You don't have to say the same words. For instance, like I don't really know that, you know, and like you can combine things too. You could say the same thing that you could call the Big Bang is also the same thing as someone calls God. Like this could be the same thing. You know, like there's a lot of similarity, and like with that being said, when someone is having trouble with their mental health and they want to look towards religion, they don't have to be so worried. Like it makes you think, oh man, I don't want to jump down this road and just start learning everything in the way that this person does it and stuff. You can create your own piece, as it were, you know, create your own little like moment of the day, meditation, whatever it is, that gives you some connection to your spirit, you know,
Right.
because it's your own spirit that you're connecting to. It's not because your spirit is connecting somewhere else.
Yeah.
You are actually trying to connect to your own. That's what that's what those are.
That's one thing where Western medicine kind of fails. We don't have. It only takes into part the physical body of us, and doesn't take in the emotional, your spiritual, and your physical body, and how it all kind of connects to a whole well-being. Which a lot of
I
times
have there's a rabbit hole that I've been down kind of about how they don't want to fix the mental health in this country. They really don't.
It wouldn't be interviews, Val. I'm sorry. Val said it would be a bit intrusive. No,
Well,
what I
you
would
meant
do is I would
church
ask.
already.
Yeah, I would ask the church, hey, do you mind if I attend a service? And then maybe they might even just say no video. They might say maybe some pictures, and they might be pictures when no one's there. Whatever it is, and they might even say no. If they say no, then no's the answer, and then I can even talk about that. Like, hey guys, you know, I talked to the Wiccan church down the road, and they said no, I couldn't watch them, you know, kill a chicken or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, just make. And,
I kill a chicken.
no, they're like, I'm just saying, like, I might try to find one of those churches where like they dance around a cobra, you know, or whatever that is. Like,
Dude,
you know, like, I
those
don't know,
people,
like.
that is a level of faith. When
I'm
they
not going to
dance
do it.
around with
I'll
snakes.
stand back. Like maybe I could take
No.
a little.
No,
Most of them would say no, Val. Maybe a lot of them might say no. But some of them, if
that
they're
snake
looking
game ain't
to
nothing to play
broaden their, you know, if they're
I
trying to get their
hate
word out, they would say yes.
Right.
Right? Just saying.
I
long as I
did
was
see something
respectful.
about that.
Yeah, there'd probably be a couple churches that say no, but I'd say most of them would.
I wouldn't even interview them. I
don't
wouldn't
know.
be asking them. I wouldn't be bothering them. I would just.
I've
This
seen
is-
people now more than ever with cameras on in their church and putting on Snapchat and everything else.
Right, and then I would then for the show I would do something
bet you
like
the
this,
Crossing
and I
would
would
do
talk
it.
about it. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
It would be
I'm
so
not going
boring.
to speak for them, but I'm sure they'd be open
Well,
to something like
There's
that.
people who almost record the whole, you know, Sunday thing on probably their YouTube or something.
They
Those
do.
People, I know they stream it there too. Yeah.
They do. They do a lot of streaming services.
I used to go to a church that was at a
YouTube,
theater.
Instagram. They got it all.
And
Yeah,
this
I don't
guy,
get into that big hype.
this was before
I just
social
can't.
media. They would film it on like PBS and stuff. Churches,
Yeah.
seeing like local, like this
I
guy.
remember back in the day.
Yeah, he did a local church at a. We went to this church at a theater. So my parents loved it because they wore whatever they like jeans or whatever, and they go into this theater which was dark like a theater, and he would do the sermon up there, and so you could like I don't know kind of hide, and you didn't have to be like feel awkward in the pews and stuff like that. I don't know. I didn't get to do that because I was a kid. I was doing with the kids whatever the kids were doing Sunday school.
Yeah.
But this same guy though, the pastor, he would do a show on PBS, and it was with puppets and shit. I think it was like for kids or something.
Huh. Yeah, I think
I
I've
remember.
seen it.
Yeah, he did like I think his name was Ken.
It wasn't Mr. Rogers, was it?
No. No. He had a sweater. The guy with the shoes.
His shoes. He always changing his shoes.
But she was actually an individual who talked a lot about mental health too.
Yes, he
For
did.
that
Yeah.
time of age, he was kind of like the leading front of helping children with issues.
Have you seen that Mr. Rogers movie with Tom
Mhm.
Hanks?
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but it looks really good.
Watch it. I own it. Me and my kids just watched it a couple weeks ago for like the 6th or 7th time. It's a good. Just watch it.
Mr. Rogers is like one of the only childhood show people who didn't get found to be like something disgusting
Crazy.
or something.
It
Yeah.
wasn't
off.
creepy when he was, yeah,
He was
he
the
didn't
only
come
one
off
that,
as creepy.
yeah, like they said, but there was a myth that he was like a sniper, or something. I think that was a myth. I think they found that wasn't true. But like he was.
No,
People
it's
say
not
that when he
true.
walked in the room, he walked in the room, he was the most kindest person you ever met. That's what everybody says. And I think
But
that's
he was
why
in the military though.
I don't know about that.
That's what they're saying. Like I
was
think
that in the
part of
movie?
the story that was true is that he was in the military, but part of everyone was saying is he was a sniper and like he just like killed a bunch of people.
Huh.
I'd
I
have
don't
to
know
look
about
at the. I'll see.
I couldn't see him being that kind of person because he seemed like they said he was
I'll
just
say
really
Mr.
kind, and that's why he didn't never really come across as creepy because he was such a kind man. It's kind of hard to connect with children at that age and make a show about it and not be creepy, you know.
Right.
But he
Captain
did it very well.
Kangaroo, Bozo, the Grand Prize Game. Okay, here you go. While there are rumors that Mr. Rogers, the host of internationally acclaimed TV show for children, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, served as a Navy SEAL of a Marine Scout sniper, or a Marine Scout sniper during the Vietnam era with a large number of confirmed kills. We have
What?
we have to state it as false. Mr. Rogers
Okay.
never served in the military. That's what Google says. Anyway,
All right, I was going to say that would have been really weird. If he
but
did
that
all
was a
that.
myth.
and
It was a
and then he
real
had
myth for a while. It's an urban legend, they say.
Yeah,
Urban myth.
but now that we can talk about everybody, because I think everybody here has tried the newest treatment of microdosing or trying magic mushrooms, and having I've had profound results when I've tried this new treatment. Once I found cannabis and turned to magic mushrooms, and it's really been a really crazy journey for me, and I try to educate people on it and help people on their journey as well, especially when it becomes legal down the road here.
Dude, they're already
Yeah,
doing
we-
these studies across the pond.
What's that?
They're already doing studies across the pond. I mean,
Yeah, Australia is about to
on
legalize, and I
psilocybin,
think that
even MDMA.
This guy helps my mental health.
And I think the reason that it works so effectively is now we're at a place where you do these psychedelics once, and it makes you realize why you're doing your behavior is what it is, and people have these experiences and then go through it and then are able to find answers to their own lives and apply it to their own mental health. That's the craziest stat is that 50% of people who do a full psychedelic trip in these research have come out cured of depression. They show absolutely no signs of depression, and that's a big number for just using it once.
My dog is really wanting some attention.
Huh.
He's down here whining at me and stuff. That's something too that helped me get
Yeah.
out of my funk. Was help me make sure I had to get off my ass, get off the video games, take him out, walk him. I had to take him. I had an apartment, so I had to take him out with his leash. Take him down
Yeah.
the road. And it got me out and outside. And
Yeah, I used to have a dog. He passed away 2 years ago, but he definitely helped me through some dark times in my life. He didn't live too long, but I had him for 5 years.
so,
I had him through the years of dealing with the law and getting arrested, and that was a hard time in my life. But well, you've been countering these, how to deal with microdosing, and did you want to talk about it more? Or?
did you say what was the substance I should try? Ginger or
We said ginger.
That's therapy.
You told me that it
Oh.
would help with the nausea effect if with the microdosing.
I think somebody else said that. That was Kim.
Someone said it.
Ginger.
What's it? Or maybe you said something. Was it cinnamon, ginger? I don't know. I don't remember what it was.
Well, there's a few things you can use, but if cinnamon and ginger are both help your gut. They're good for gut bacteria.
Yeah, I've done the microdosing now a little bit, and that's not so much as the rest of you maybe, but I really think that one dose of the Burma, I felt a lot of positive effects and no negative effects. When I doubled the microdose, I did feel some negative effects, and maybe that's part of the journey, part of like I have to break through that. I guess I don't know, but.
Yeah.
I don't really think I'm going to do a double dose again for now.
Yeah, sometimes the best thing about microdosing is not feeling it, let it do its work behind the scenes. And that's what this microdosing regimen is. It seems to be the future of mental health treatment. Works so well because you don't really feel it, but it has these profound effects, especially taken over time, where you can change your behavior, kind of rewrite some neurons that are just been bad for a while, and they work way more effectively because they don't wear out. Your brain has these natural receptors for these molecules.
Well, would you say that you want to prepare yourself mentally, as we've talked about other aspects of mental health and how we maybe disregard our feelings, how we don't talk about mental health enough, and maybe sort of prepare yourself for that journey by sort of knowing, okay, I'm in this to help myself. I'm in this to this. Because when someone says, as a younger person in their 20s or something, hey, I just want to get effed up and let me get this or that, let me get eat more than I should or whatever, and then they're not prepared for that wild ride. They might end up seeing some of their demons. They might see some of their problems in front of them, and they're not prepared for it. So if you prepare ahead of time with a lot more than just expecting it to help you, you know what I'm saying? Like a little bit more.
Yeah, you definitely. That's why it's when they legalize this, it's going to be good to have facilitated people who can help educate people, and it's okay to take it by yourself, but it's better when you do it to be educated on what it's going to be like. And have somebody on standby if needed, and because from my own experience, it is kind of a different experience with somebody when you're alone or when somebody there. So. And more research to find that out.
My first experience with mushrooms is when I was 15 years old. I did a quarter, and that was okay. And
a young mind.
Very.
But they do that, and actually in third world countries, the ages they start doing psychedelics in these ancient civilizations is 13 years old. So it's been done in other civilizations. So.
I guess I could see that being done at puberty. Why not? Like if the rest of your body is developing at a massive rate at that time, why not the brain? Yeah, why not push? I mean, it is too, but yeah, why not?
The tribe in the Amazon, by the time you're 13, you're an adult.
It was eye-opening at that age for me to go through that, and then shortly after, when I was 17, I upped it. We were doing LSD and some other things, and I wouldn't do another LSD one. It wasn't for me. Some people, they say, "Oh, I love it." Okay, that's for you. Have fun. I like now for as far as ever a psychedelic and microdosing. Personally, microdosing on the psilocybin, it's very therapeutic. There's so many positives to it that it's hard for me to fill a sheet in a short time. I'm not so moody, more forgiving. That's the biggest one. Because, like I said, with cannabis, like I got a longer fuse, but when I take a microdose, I lengthen that fuse to that fight or flight mechanism that I have.
Right. Yeah, it works so well, and I think that's why the CDC and the FDA have said that that this is the greatest, treatment to come around since the 90s, and that they're.
Oh, in a
It looks
100
like it's
years.
going to bypass cannabis with legalization timing. It may actually,
That's true.
Australia just legalized psychedelics, and these other countries are following. But the research is profound. They're like,
Yes.
you can't not look at this research and be like, wow, this is amazing stuff.
Dude, the
Well,
research is there. It's there.
Yeah.
I want
can't
to
deny it.
reinforce something like, actually a couple points from earlier. You talked about going to helping at AA while using cannabis, and I actually was mandated by the military to go to AA because of cannabis. So when you're in there and they're like, well, "What are you doing? What are you here for again?" And you're like, "Yeah, the drug test in the army, what?" For cannabis, and you're in there with people who have like ruined their lives with, meth or crack or anything, just much worse things. And it was eye opening because I took it in. I listened to everyone's stories. It was much like this, except with a whole room of people, right?
Yeah.
But I will tell you guys, I was still going through it at that time, and the main thing that brought me out was not. Maybe psilocybin would have helped for sure during that time, but the main thing that brought me out was not focusing on me and my shortcomings, my regrets and all those sorts of things, and all the issues I was going through, but focusing more on something that's bigger than me, right? Okay, let's build a business, let's feed people, let's do something that everybody needs, right? Like all these things that now I felt a spiritual feeling at the time, almost with a hand on my shoulder, not a hand on my shoulder like, oh, you'll be okay, my son. More like a hand on my shoulder, like, come on, you got this here's the paperwork, here's what you got to do. Come on,
You got to move.
and there is someone putting this whole sort of vision in my head, because I've also had multiple times where things are put right in my path, that could only be beneficial towards the same goal. And I'm talking, I moved into a house right at the time I decided to start making it happen that had 4 aquariums, 10-gallon aquariums, but like 4 fish tanks. And I had already decided on aquaponics. I already, and then just down the road, I could just keep going down the list, like of different things, like something my friend gave me, some like trash wood that someone was throwing away that was really good stuff still, and I'm like, that I needed at the time, and just like all the down that when I moved into this house, there was materials already in the garage, some extra stuff that I needed, and I was just like, and someone hooked me up with a pastor from a church, and I don't even know the denomination, I think Presbyterian or something, but this pastor grows cannabis, and he hooked me up with my first 2 seeds. But
Nice.
before that, he gave me an opportunity that I needed. I needed experience, I needed practice and knowledge, and he had a whole room with an aquaponics system in it, and they had no one to run it. I told this story before. Apologies for maybe Steve-O left because he's just heard me say it too many times, But it was just so
Like, I'm
weird,
done.
man. Everything kept happening. Like they gave me a key to the church so that I could help get their aquaponics running, because the person this kid that they had running it didn't know what he was doing, and he was long gone, and they had all this money tied into nothing that was just sitting there, 300-gallon tank and all this stuff. I mean, a big system, and there's episodes up on about it. But my point is, like, this was like right as I started the show, right as I started wanting to learn all this stuff, all these things being put right in my path nonstop throughout this process, and now, like, I constantly have to remind myself. I have my own little conversations with whoever that is that's helping me out, that's giving me these instructions. I actually hesitate to say amen, because I've heard weird things about like I don't want to get off topic, but like history and like the Egyptian like history where someone that was trying to be the one god then wanted to make everyone worship them, and now who was that was Amen Ra, and now what do we say for the biggest religion in the world? We say amen after every time we pray. Where does that word come from otherwise? I mean, I haven't really Googled it, I'll be honest, but I feel like I've heard that that's where it comes from. So when I talk to my spiritual connection, I say things like, how are you doing today? Like I might say Lord, I might say whatever, but I don't think of it as the same necessarily God that maybe you have, but for me, it's my own creation of my own relationship,
Yeah.
And I don't think if there's an all-powerful being out there, I don't think he cares that what you call him exactly. You could be like, dude, how you doing, bro? Like, whatever. Like it's the feeling behind it, the emotion that he can feel. He knows if that being is that all-powerful, he knows what your intentions are behind it, right? So there's a lot of power in having some kind of spiritual connection, even if it's just with yourself. But for me, it was like finding purpose in my life, pouring myself into something that's bigger, not just to be like, oh, let me go get some stuff, let me get more things, and let me get stuff.
Yeah, and that's really what a mature psychedelic trip is about. It's about introspecting yourself and finding yourself. You were talking about how people use it to party, and a lot of times if you use it like that, you're not going to get the same effect as if you're using it to introspect your own mental health and find answers and stuff. So it really depends on what age you use it at too.
Well, I think if that was a part of the journey and part of our practice, like you're saying, younger and how older civilizations would do that, I could totally see it changing everything. I just hesitate to rely on it solely, because you're going through a journey with all sorts of things. Cannabis and mushrooms are both probably worth it.
Well, the great thing about it, all of this science shows that people off of one treatment can have, a whole year effects on it without having to take it again.
Especially the extreme effects, for sure.
Yeah, and the people who have depression that is not treatable, like mine was, where we're like every 6 months I'd have to start over and find a new medication. And those people are really affected by these molecules the most. Shakes their brain away, kind of.
Yeah, because you don't build up a resistance to psilocybin, but it resets fairly quickly, which is much different than, say, drugs that they're putting you on or whatever. What happened to Steve-O?
I have no idea.
Lost him.
He fell out. I don't know. He just went poof.
Something I said, I'm sorry, guys. I kind of went off a little bit.
You told that story
I left
again.
Stephanie speechless. Valerie's still waiting to find out what was said.
And there's still a lot of people in here for my first live podcast.
Yeah, not bad at all. I mean, I shared it out a bunch, and then you got what's the number on YouTube? I can't see that. Is anybody watching you on YouTube?
I'm not
either.
Well, you go look.
Well, yeah, you can. All you gotta do is put your mouse over the eyeball up on your by the live. I don't have that eyeball. If you put the number or the live number there.
Oh, there.
Over that, hover it over that, and it'll tell
nothing
you.
on YouTube.
Huh?
Nothing on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, YouTube is just it's a fickle.
Most of them are watching on the Rumination podcast project.
Yeah, guys, in the comments,
I didn't see him down there. I gotta add him back.
Oh, you gotta hear that.
It's really annoying.
It's just me. Don't worry about it. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Where'd you go? We want to know.
It just
We're nosy people. Where did you go?
I had to back out and back in for some reason.
Why are you whining at me, dog? The dog keeps whining to see, like, that makes me sort of think morbid things.
Well, I've been wanting to tell you, I love your background, dude, and I have felt I want that as a painting in my house.
Thanks, man. It's pretty cool.
Every time I see it, I'm like, I want that.
I call him Buster.
Buster.
It's gorgeous.
Buster Keaton.
Yeah.
You know what I'm happy about? Springtime. Summertime's coming.
Well, they say psychologically, summertime is like, so in states where the weather never changes, people have higher depression rates, like California. because there's nothing to look forward to. Christmas looks just like July. It's not any different.
Lack of vitamin D.
That's the
Well,
truth.
that's well, no, they actually have more vitamin D
I
in
mean,
California, but
I mean, other around
well,
here, we have,
maybe. But what
I
I'm
definitely
saying
get,
is
like,
we have
80%.
lower depression rates because of the season changes.
Yeah.
Because our mind has this like thing to look forward to at some point in the future. But yeah, they also say that you get more fulfillment out of life, happiness per se, out of having responsibility, not out of things and people loving you and fame and all this fortune, all that. That doesn't bring happiness. What brings happiness is you having some sort of responsibility to some bigger thing or cause or entity, whatever it is.
Direction.
Whatever. Yeah, and that's so weird, you guys, because I went from ready to give up, thinking that there was no need for me to be around. It wasn't like everyone hates me. It's more like there's just like I might as well be bumping the log, so I'm going to leave. Well, I went from that to then deciding that I at least could use those years I have left towards this other bigger thing, that's maybe I'm insignificant, maybe I still think low of myself, but this other thing though is worthwhile. This other thing, this bigger cause is a good thing. It's not tainted by my history. It's its own thing. That's kind of how it looks, how it feels, like a company or whatever. It's not you. It's like a separate entity now.
Right.
What is the problem, bud? You were just outside. Like, I feel like I'm kind of worried, like morbidly, like he might, like, sometimes dogs know there's something wrong with them and they just start bugging the shit out of you.
I've trained. I've been around dogs all my life, dude. Dogs will just be dogs. They're like humans. They want attention sometimes.
Yeah.
Mine do the same thing all the time with my wife.
They usually leave me alone down here, but he's just right up my butt.
I actually trained my service dog. Because when I was actually locked up, I was training greyhounds.
So you were that country song about the old red?
No, we wasn't no old red. We weren't basset hounds. These dogs were like fast. They come from like the racetracks in Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and these dogs never knew anything but the cage and the track. They didn't even know at 2 years old. They didn't know how to use stairs.
Oh wow!
So we had to train them how to negotiate stairs, and it was part of the process of training these animals to be adopted out to families. And dogs will just, I'm telling you, they have their own personality. Each dog is different. So
What's a
dogs
dog?
will love you.
Yeah.
Geese will love you too.
Keith.
I want a goose now.
My
so
baby
mean.
Goose loves me, man. She loves me. She'll fight for me, dude. Straight up. She fought my wife one day for me. That is a true story. My wife come outside and I was in the back and she was yelling at me. Me and my wife been together 15 some years, and she was just on my ass about something I didn't do, and I needed to do it. And Goose was out there, and man, she chased my wife to the back door. Yeah, just because of her attitude at me. Goose sensed that and attacked her. Yep. I was like laughing because it's just a bird. Like, kick it. It's a bird.
I was actually going to share another story here about the psychedelic. Share the screen here.
No, service animals are real, man. They truly are for therapy.
And this one is about, the psychedelic being in the midst. This was a story I read the other day. It actually had some good information. And it's saying about how, mushrooms are being legalized and being treated similar to treat alcoholism. Because that's originally what it was actually
I've heard this.
researched for, was to treat alcoholism back in the 50s. And then it kind of escaped the lab, and, but but now they're realizing that, as the headline says, the field of psychedelic medicine is in the midst of a resurgence. And what we used to think were hallucinogens are now powerful medications to release, most psychedelics act on pathway neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, pathways that are closely tied to addiction and reward. And there's evidence that these psychedelic drugs can reset the brain's abnormal functioning when consumed in safe doses and in controlled, therapeutic settings.
Yeah, a guided trip is they put it.
Right. And I mean, it's definitely a reset, because I've experienced it too as well. And it feels like basically what happens is that, from the theory of it, is that parts of your brain communicate that don't normally do. So that's why you can see, like smell sounds or have different experiences but it also works by allowing to break up that negative thought patterns, and come up with new pathways that are a lot more healthier. And I think that there's a lot of future in that.
Can you guys hear my fan?
No.
Okay, I was just wondering, because it kicks on, because one of my grow rooms is right next to me, and it kicks on sometimes.
Yeah, and here it says right here, basically, that when psychedelics are used, allowing us to break negative thought patterns and come up with new ideas. And some believe that the varieties of mushroom contained naturally, which allow us to see our consciousness as kids, as children or babies. And then once we are allowed, to some extent, see ourselves as a child, our perception of ourselves changes. And
100%. Someone told me that as a human being, we go through changes every 7 years, 7, 14, 21, and you just keep going. And it's like you're getting wiser. Your body's going puberty at 14 years old. So that,
yeah,
I can't remember where I read it, but
yeah, you're basically at 5 years old, your brain starts to become its own individual self. And it starts to shoot down those neuron pathways that are more straight lined onto the individual, the person, and the other neurons kind of get burned off. And that's what happens with mental illness. You go down too straight of a road, and all these neurons get burned off, and all you have is that one neuron that's basically darkness and mental illness. And when you do these psychedelics, they expand that horizon back open again to the possibilities that anything can happen. And I think that really helped me a lot understand that, I may be in a dark place now, but there's a way out of it. It's not the end of the road. There are other roads to choose.
I think this needs to be fixed. I don't think I need more. But
that's what mental illness, does a lot. It sends us down a dead end road, and usually it leads with somebody committing suicide because they don't see another way out.
Or the anxiety of, well, I've already wasted my chance or whatever. Like I've already, I've lost my best years or whatever it is. That can be a later form of mental health where you just lose hope because you're, I'm past my prime, whatever it is. But I always look at it like this, like there's always someone younger than you that you could be helping. Like I hope that I have it about me at that point when I am at my oldest to continue trying to help someone, younger than me,
right.
maybe outdo some of my mistakes, or maybe, miss some of those potholes that I hit, things like that. And it's like,
I know when I tried to take my life, I was 19, I was facing prison time. And at the moment I was looking at a life sentence because armed robbery is a class X felony, and 19 years old, you're facing a life sentence. That's a hard one. And
right.
I honestly tried hanging myself, and I can honestly tell you to this day I do not know why I'm here. So I guess I'm supposed to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, you don't need a specific reason other than you're here to do some more good. You're here to make a
there's
positive
the
impact.
purpose for me.
I
got to do something with what I got. I had this second chance. So ever since then, I battled from that point. I'll be honest with you. up to that point, I couldn't read. I was dyslexia is a real thing, and I battled dyslexia today with spelling. So if you get a text or something spelling, you see me off, that's because of that. I do my best with spelling, but reading up until that point, I couldn't read like at all. After that point, I fell in with love with reading, and I can't honestly put a book down.
It definitely helps, especially if you find books that you like, the type of genre.
Starts making you be honest with yourself, because that when you start speaking the truth to yourself, that's when you could find the happiest part of you. A lot of times we all live in denial of what our mental health is, and then before it just collapses. And
I find
see it every
myself.
day.
I mean, going through school, I was the guy that didn't do anything in English, failed all of that. Love science, but I guess that's why I'm where I'm at now with soil. I fell in love with that at a later stage. When I was locked up, I was doing the greenhouse, but therapy, dude, for plants, that's real. I fell in love with my hands getting dirty, and I realized that purpose, that I could do something. I was really gifted at growing stuff. I really am. So, green thumb, I guess some people call it.
Dr. Green Thumb.
Yeah, I always imagine that someday when I die, what I'll be thinking of is the moments I had with nature, like walking through the forest or watching the sunset. Those are the kind of things that make you.
What do you think about making an event like that once a year, where psychedelics would be implied, but maybe you just have to be copacetic about it.
BYOB, bring your own beer.
You do that in California.
But like everyone's outside, and it's like a daytime sort of event where everyone just walks around barefoot in like a field somewhere. I don't know.
Have you ever heard of grounding? Any of you?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm. Yeah,
okay,
that's what I'm getting.
I'd definitely invite yoga people and sound healers, and you could definitely make some kind of event out of it. Where
Probably no bongo drums though. I'm thinking.
When you listen to sound and therapy in the forest, it's something profound happens in your brain, especially when you're on psychedelic. Like the experience that people can have can be very profound, very spiritual, very meaningful.
It's loud in the forest. There's a lot of sound.
It's
it's not silent. You just sit and listen and
the shamans used to do that. They would play instruments while meditating the psychedelics in the forest, and it would make them enter another subconscious so they could communicate more effectively with the forest and listen to it.
I love it doing that in the woods. Dan, if you live near me, we need to get out in the woods and do stuff like that this summer, because I used to do that all the time when I was living out in Custer, South Dakota.
Private event.
I was in the mountains, man, and I wasn't using cannabis. I was drinking. Wasn't even using no psychedelics, but I was drinking every week. But there was so much peace in the woods, man. Like that's where I was hunting, fishing, hiking out. I didn't need the cannabis or that. I found so much enjoyment there. That's where my therapy was.
Yeah, we've kind of separated from that in America.
Truly.
And that's another aspect of why our mental health crisis is happening, is we kind of separated ourselves from nature. And I mean, there's still people obviously who do go in nature, but majority of Americans don't. They're tied down with life, and they don't have the time or take the time to do it more.
Or if they do, they want to bring an RV with all the amenities. And
sometimes it's just great to sit in the forest by yourself in silence. And
that's why I like to frisbee golf.
Yes.
Sometimes you're rushed because it might be a busy course that day or whatever, but sometimes it's just a nice nature walk and you get to toss a frisbee while you're doing it.
I've never been frisbee golfing or disc golfing.
Gotta go this summer, man. I'm gonna have to go down there and see if there's any good courses.
We have some courses around here, Dan, don't we?
Yeah, Braden apparently does a lot of frisbee golfing. I told him to.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Next time he goes.
I'd like to go.
Always fun. I got a
take
lot
my
of
wife-
courses around
I
me,
want to
but
get
I also
doing something with my wife. I want to start
Yeah.
getting more active with her.
and that's fun too because they don't have to throw. Like the missus can just can go
And you
with
can-
you and take a
And you
walk.
can smoke cannabis. Nobody's gonna care if you're smoking cannabis in the woods
Mhm.
or bother you.
Right?
There are some courses that
Like,
that's
Well, yeah,
what
it's,
they do.
it's a little busy.
Too
If
close.
it's a little busy, then yeah, you probably be
Yeah, or
respectful.
too close to residential. Like there's one course in Washington that's just, I mean, it's
Do some edibles.
houses right there.
I mean, I'm not an edible guy, but anybody.
I was
Like,
the
you
same
can
way when I went
smoke before
golfing.
you go. Like
I'd
if you
be-
can't last an hour without having a toke, if you just have a toke before in the car or somewhere before you go out.
Well, I mean-
to
I'll blow a joint.
When I
I'm a medical cannabis patient,
When I
so
went golfing,
I'm
I'd
pretty
smoke all-
open
every
with
hole.
it. Like, I'll blow wherever I want.
For the most
Right.
part, you can. I just mean that
I
one
don't
course
care.
is just tough.
I did
You're
golf a
gonna
lot.
view
And I
me
did.
as don't judge me. I mean, that's one of the things that I've
Don't
battled
tell me
with,
what to do.
in my life. Yeah, don't tell me what to do. But what are you doing?
I can judge you
People
because I
drink a
can
beer
do
on
what
each
I
hole.
want.
I smoke a whole joint on each hole.
Yeah, no, I think having it rolled up would be easier for sure than having to try
Yeah.
to do something else.
Well, I've been one of those guys. I've been on the golf course. Everybody's drinking, and I'm just sitting there smoking cannabis and still having a good time.
Me too.
Yeah. I may smoke a little more than I normally do on the course, but you're out on and having a good time.
I usually
Well,
have
there's
a
a-
joint hanging out my mouth.
Yeah.
Something about that too, especially if you take a tolerance break or maybe it's your first time that day and you wait until you're out there already on the course and you're just in nature and there's something more about it that
I
not
enjoy.
quite the psychedelic route, but almost.
I have been drunk in the woods. I've been golfing, drunk. I'm going to tell you right now, I
I've done
enjoy
everything in the
so much. Everything's so much better when you're not drunk. Like, so
I used to
Yeah.
drink while frisbee golfing and it was not good. By the time you get done, you've had too many beers and
Now I can't even drink because it messes with my mental health too much. Messes with my gut bacteria, and then I get in these weird moods. So I just stay away from it. I think that's what happens to a lot of us as we get older. Our bodies react more harshly to it. and
It's
stop
true.
Drinking.
One beer will give me a headache sometimes.
Yeah.
I can't. No, I couldn't even think about drinking a beer right now. Thank
Especially the
you,
yeast
no.
in beer, it messes with my bacteria, and I can get out of whack for like 2 weeks.
I mean,
Isn't that right,
just
Steve-O?
What's that?
we should. Where does Steve-O live in?
I said, isn't that right, Steve-O?
Does he
Steve-O's
live
all the way at the top.
It was in Northern Illinois.
He's way at the top.
Okay. He's still in
We're
the
gonna see
state.
him on 420 and through the weekend. So
Yeah.
maybe we could do something that Friday.
Yeah.
Thursday and then Friday, we might actually do a second show. So we might do a second show Friday night, but if we've already got it down, we could still.
You guys are going to be at that Mason City thing on 420, right?
That's what I
He
just
is.
said. Yeah.
Now, I know I'm going to be there. As I can see it right now.
Well, you just have to drag Dan. Tell him it's for his own mental health.
It's Dan's mental health. Dan, it's for your mental health. Tell him right now. Just beat it to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll
Did you
just
make
keep reminding him just randomly. It's for your mental
Did
health.
you make
Dan.
Maui mad? She made an angry symbol at our post.
Dang, Maui.
Oh, no. Why did I make you
15
mad?
minutes.
Probably
Sorry.
angry because she couldn't join in the conversation.
I don't see her in the
Sorry.
chat. Oh, I wonder
No,
if she.
it's a reaction that from Facebook that she.
I know. I
had.
just think she would say something too. Maybe she got
I'm not
banned.
watching. I'm honestly
Wow.
not watching any of the chats. So
Well,
No, it wasn't the chat, just her reaction. We got all kinds of reactions. We got a wow, funny. That's what we want.
I get into the conversation and I forget about the chats.
Yeah.
well, that's one way to do it. And a lot of us, and Steve-O and I are used to the phone, the long, skinny phone view, going live, doing live streaming. That's different than doing a podcast. So
Yeah.
we've sort of combined the two by reading all the comments in a podcast. It's kind of unusual. So at higher numbers, it's kind of impossible but right now I can. Whoops, sorry, she said.
Well, she's not angry at us.
All right. I gotta set up the game cam.
Yeah, but so far a pretty good conversation. Probably I'll start wrapping it up here.
Well, and to your point about having multiple, it would be a good idea because I think having a sort of not necessarily round two, but more like a revisit our mental health, revisit again every few weeks or whatever. Why not?
A lot of times we're in different moods too. What we want to share, like maybe Steve will be more willing to share next time. And
you might find me in a mad mood. You got me in a happy mood right now.
Yeah. Plus, our minds are constantly changing, even in a month or two. And
yeah. I also would like to have you on when we revisit it on People in the Boxes. We did do one episode, but I think we'll do it again at some point. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely a subject. And next time we could have a guest too. We could have an open, people can come in and talk as well.
That'd be cool. I
Or
like
part two,
that.
mental health.
I love seeing other people's views on everything.
Yeah, especially women. Women can. 'Cause the woman's perspective is, especially one who has children, is
100% women. They're the mothers. They're mothers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they ain't wired like us. I'll tell you that. They ain't wired like us.
Yeah, they definitely take more stress. They go through more stress because of the fact that they are raising children in our society, and
my
we
wife
don't take care of them enough.
My wife, she works for a mental health agency to where she works one-on-one with the kids. I think she's got like 30 kids that she deals with in her caseload, and these mental health. She has a couple autistic kids. I mean, so she has a broad range of what she deals with on a daily basis. I mean, I take my hat off to her all the time.
Yeah, I mean, not taking away from Waylon, he's a single dad, and that takes a lot too. But we all need to take better care of the people who actually are single and single parents, because it's a lot harder for them.
Yes,
to navigate life easier. And our society doesn't seem to take care of them enough as it should be.
Yeah, I think it's hard to not be snooty about it when people say this, but when we talk about how it's very important for the family to stay together and all that, and people take offense to it, I can do it by myself, and I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it the way I would have liked, but at the same time, I do see the value in having a household that is together, and so it's a struggle I've had in the past. Like, do I try to make this work? Do I, is this beyond, So a lot of guys have those issues where they have, spousal issues, and that's what causes them a lot of stress. And
I think that psychedelic, I put a comment in.
My wife,
psychedelics. I think psychedelics can be used for therapy someday to treat, people who have issues in their marriage.
Yeah,
and I think you'll see centers like that where you do a psychedelic with a therapist for 8 hours, and you talk through your issues with your significant other, and you come out of the place in a lot better place.
My wife would she'd say I'm honest about it, but my number one stressor is her and the children. That's life, though. That is. What am I going to do? I gotta approach it with as positively as possible that I can muster, and I just gotta keep moving forward. And that's just I gotta keep moving forward. I can't stop. I gotta go.
So many people take when someone is grumpy to them or has issues, even if it's it is your spouse or anybody. Most of us take that personally, like it was something that we did to make them angry. And there's so many times when your friend or wife or kid or whatever, they're all pissed off and have a problem. It's not, and it has nothing to do with you. You just happen to be the only one within range, And
Yeah, no,
it
I
happens
agree.
so
No,
often.
I get
It
it.
happens so often, but yet it's like how else can you take that if somebody's coming at you? But then, and how do we be the bigger person if they're, uh, if we think maybe in our heart that they don't mean it towards us or whatever? That doesn't mean anything if they're still actually verbally or physically attacking you or whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
you know. And it's so hard on our psyche and our mental health to think that everybody has a problem with you when really they have their own issues to deal with.
Yep.
You know, the same thing goes with online and people who follow me, and they maybe watch hours of me on the screen, and they think they know me. You know, they think they know they want to make assumptions and all this and that, or talk trash in the comments or something like that. And it's like, they think they know me so well, they can like pick apart my idiosyncrasies, and I don't even know what they look like half the time.
Right.
And that can weigh on your psyche pretty hardcore too. Like, all these people hate me. It's like, no. These people they had nothing to do better than to watch you for 6 hours, and then they just think they know everything about you. It gets crazy.
Social media is bad for everybody.
Yeah,
I
I think
look
it's
at
a
it-
tool.
Overconsumed. Yeah,
If you
it's
use it the right
overconsumed.
way,
It's,
go ahead.
if someone wants to, I best advice I can say on that is to anybody is if someone wants to look at you and judge, let them.
Yeah.
What are
Me-
they
me-
going to do to you? What are they? In my mind is
Yeah.
my first grade teacher instilled into me something about the bullying, and Miss Newell was her name, and it's helped me for so long. But I would when I was a kid in first grade, people were making fun of me, and she'd be like, "What did they do to you?" Nothing. They just make fun of you. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you physically, and that's stuck with me. But emotionally, words can't hurt. I get that. I mean, they can tear a person down immensely. I get that. But I like to look at it as through a perspective of they really can't hurt me. Like, they can't hit me. So that's on them. If they want to say hurtful words to me, they must be really dealing with something in their life they're struggling with mentally, that they are lashing out at me. You know, and that's the way I see it.
Right. Yeah, most of the most liked people in lives are people who are able to navigate life and shed off the people who dislike them and just continue on, and and not worry about them, and those people are usually the most successful in life. But it is hard to overcome that because our ego kind of inflames it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I totally agree, and I kind of look at me being locked up and going away as the biggest slap to someone's ego in the world. I got robbed of my freedom by my own things. I did it. I was there. I had to go there. So, but being robbed of your freedom and not being able to open a door, perspective changes for you.
Yeah, your freedom taken away. That's my greatest. I have nightmares about it, and I used to have like nightmares where I'd get arrested or know I did something bad and I was going to be locked away for a long time. And I woke up in a straight nightmare. 'Cause that's a fear of mine, getting my freedom taken away.
Okay.
Scary as hell.
I watched a guy. Here's something. You're afraid to being locked up, and that is at one level. Here's a different level of thought process. I watched a man, after being locked up for 48 years, climb a freaking fence, go through one strand of razor wire, Constantine wire, and sit down between the two fences. The other fence had a wall of Constantine wire.
Yeah.
He sat down in the middle of them, and when he got, they were after him. They were going, and they apprehended him. You know why he did it?
Why?
He got paroled.
And you wanted to go back into jail?
He was he didn't even get released yet. When you get paroled, they tell you, hey, you're getting released on this date. So he got that release date after 48 years, and he didn't want to leave.
Right.
That was so terrifying to that man. The nightmares, the excruciating nightmares about facing society made him come back. He didn't even get to leave.
I can take that perspective into mind and actually think about it. You know, like I've been not being in society for 40 years and then all of a sudden being back in it when everything's differently, that would seem very overwhelming.
He didn't even get to leave. He made the decision to jump the fence before he was released so he'd get an escape charge. So it's more time. So if you get an escape charge, that's five years. So your parole is taken. So that's wiped. Now he's got to serve 5 more years on top of his sentence. So the rest of his life's there.
Yeah.
And when asked, why did you do that, bro? Like, what was your purpose? I don't have anybody out there. Everybody's dead.
Yeah, sad.
Mind frame, dude. Because I had an out date. I knew I was going to be getting out at a time early. To know that guy's done 48 years, that's longer, double. At the time of my life was double my life. And then he said, I would rather be in here in this wall because society is so terrifying. That is, wow. And then hear the other side, knowing people that are so terrified of going to jail that they would rather kill themselves. Because I personally know of someone that did. And it's mind-blowing to me. The one end of the spectrum to the other.
The FBI said that was actually up this year, that people apparently were getting like scammed into committing crimes, and once they committed a crime, these people would blackmail them for money, and then the people would commit suicide. The FBI
dude, that's the first I've heard of that. That's crazy.
The people, you know, they're like, oh my god, I'm gonna go to jail forever for doing something in these scams, and they end up killing themselves.
Oh my god, dude, that is. We need to
Dan,
hunt those people down.
I'm gonna go.
All right.
And we'll definitely be revisiting this for sure.
For sure.
I'm gonna use the restroom and stuff before I start the show, but definitely see you over there if you want, and Philip for sure. Everybody here, whoever's in still.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be over there. I was gonna end it here shortly, and
yeah, I might be over. I got
no rush. Really no
coffee.
rush because I'm gonna set up and I'm gonna say my hellos and stuff, and then we're gonna give some time for people to come in while I'm hanging out. So
absolutely,
thank you for having me.
I love the show, Dan. We need to do this again for sure.
Yeah, Dan, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining.
See you, Will.
We'll see you shortly.
Oh, I like that. That's crazy how that happened. I've never seen that one before.
Do it by.
Woo! There you go.
I guess we do it like that.
Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if I like me in the middle though. Put me off to the side. I'm not that guy. There we go. There you go. That's the one. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I'm open to always talk about my struggles and how I deal with them.
Sure. Thanks for sharing, and yeah, we'll have to do it again here in a month or two, and we're all different times of the year and different, you know, I guess you can
different
say
situations.
Yeah. I'm ready for spring too. I'm like kind of exhausted of winter, and my mind needs more sun.
I need to get my hands in the dirt and plant, and I need to see the life coming up, man.
Right. Like that's my most favorite thing to do is get up at between 6 and 7, go outside in the summer when the sun's coming up and everything's coming alive. That's awesome time to be alive.
Oh, absolutely. Morning time is the best.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna step out. I'll probably see you over there.
All right, sounds good.
All right, brother. Later, Steve-O.
All right, see you, man.
And I'll see you over there too. I'm just gonna do a quick outro and probably end the broadcast. So.
Okay.
So I'll see you there here in a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for joining. And if you're still watching, thanks for joining me tonight. I just wanted to do, a little outro. Something that's really important is that after listening tonight, I hope that you guys can explore, more complex thoughts of your own mind, your mental health, and that, this knowledge can help you, help your own life, and not only save your mind, but hopefully save the planet. And that's, why I have this podcast. So with that, I want to say the most important thing I will say today: don't forget to love yourself, forgive yourself, and be good to yourself. And obviously with that, anything in the world is possible. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys later. Please like and follow me.